Hello there everyone, welcome to this video, and in this video I'm talking about 3 unconventional super weapons. And just as a heads up, this is just for fictional purposes. This is just for what if scenarios and interesting things. This is not designed to give anyone ideas whatsoever. This is not, it's merely theoretical and fiction or fictitious stuff with a little bit of very real world situations. And yeah, this first one, and pardon me, I have notes, and yeah, this first one. Under our oceans lie pockets of methane. What if an enterprising baddie set up a daisy chain of undersea phosphorus explosives? This could devastate fleets or sink entire battle groups and result in massive tsunamis affecting coastal regions in both directions. This event could also cause ecological disasters as well as unknown reactions or events under the Earth's crust. So there are these giant undersea methane deposits. There's one near or at the Marianas Trench, which is like, they expect metric tons of methane gas. And basically what I said is, so let's say there's a villain that has underwater phosphorus explosives, and they set up to go off all at once. So this would ignite the methane, causing a massive undersea explosion, which would cause tsunamis. I don't know if it would go in one direction or two directions, because you have this giant undersea cavity that's been created by an explosion, and all that water, or evaporated water, has to come back. And of course, if there were ships present, if there was a naval group there, that'd be a big problem. Even doesn't matter the size of the ships or the navy. If you have a multi-mile event undersea igniting methane, that's a big problem. And that idea is just terrifying, because not only that, you have the preceding tsunamis, and if you could only imagine the kind of chaos that would create. And on a side note here, there is allegedly Russian torpedoes that are nuclear. Now keep this in mind. They designed these nuclear torpedoes to create tsunamis as anti-ship weapons. So it's not so far-fetched if the Russians theoretically have nuclear torpedoes that detonate and cause tsunamis for ships. And of course, in the Bermuda Triangle, that's how they supposedly allege how some of these ships sink, because there is also another, allegedly, hasn't been proven, methane deposits that releases a giant methane bubble, and they say it either pops at the surface or under a ship, which of course would break the hull of the ship, regardless of what kind of ship it is and what if it's made of, because that's a lot of force and pressure. But the second one is just as terrifying. So, without being too particular, there are naturally occurring radiation, spores, fungi, and biologicals that could be carried on the wind. An intentional or unintentional release of any of those could decimate an animal and humans alike. Currents or pressure systems or winds could carry contaminants over vast distances with no technical way to stop them. Of course, the Chernobyl incident, what caused a lot of death was that fallout just blew in people's direction. And there's no countermeasure to that except run away or run in another direction that the wind isn't blowing. And of course, the Fukushima disaster, that blew radiation all the way from Japan to the coasts of California. So this is a very scary idea, because it doesn't take much. If there was like a high orbit or a high altitude release of a substance or fungi or whatever the hell you want to call it, and the wind could just intentionally carry this wherever. So if someone was dastardly bastard enough, it's just carried on the wind. And that is a scary idea. And of course, this third one is, to me, the scariest one, because it's the one that's actually being used right now. So that is mass manipulation and control. We've seen this firsthand, how people are easily manipulated and controlled by supposed relaying of facts and information. Specific religious groups that control sections of finance, or some easily roused to violence and gullibility. No, aroused to violence and gullibility of humanity as a species. Did I read that right? Yeah, okay. All it really takes is one overly confident orator to stir people to heinous deeds. How far are people willing to go to be led to feel safe? And of course, where do we see this going on now? Now, I can't get too specific here on YouTube because YouTube doesn't like people going against the status quo. But I will have to say this. In what other times in human history has the mainstream media roused groups or hordes of people against their neighbor, their brother, or even before modern technology? You have the Civil War, the American Civil War in particular, that you had publications of abolitionist rhetoric. You had the other side publishing their rhetoric, and it became a war between families. Father fought son, son fought father, brother fought brother, uncle, cousin, and it was a very crappy affair. Every casualty that happened was an American. So, and you had people who were fanatical zealots, some of them abolitionists, that carried out heinous deeds of plundering, burning, raping, and pillaging in the name of abolition. And of course, on the other side, you had the, Quantrell's partisan rangers who felt slighted, that they've seen their family members hung from trees in their own front yard, stirred to action and vengeance against people who did them wrong. So this one, to me, is more feasible and more terrifying because we're seeing it in action now. You just see people acting crazy because you have health officials telling them to wear a mask or to persecute the unvaccinated. You have people being ostracized and told not to go to work if they're not vaccinated. People are losing their jobs, their livelihoods over all this bullshit, just because some political elitists told them to persecute these people. And regardless of if you're saying it's for public health, don't give me that bullshit. Because let's look at public health, since we mentioned it. We have the opioid epidemics. We have rampant heroin, meth. We have obesity, heart disease. There's plenty of public health things affecting American society, not just American society, across the globe, issues with this. But how come there's no mandates against drug abusers? How come there's no mandates against opioids? How come there's no health mandates against McDonald's? Weird, isn't it? How all of a sudden complete strangers care about other people's health, and you get your shots and boosters, buddy, or we're gonna make sure you don't work. So with this, the mass manipulation, media, and brainwashing, we're seeing it in action right now, and there's people who perpetuate this. There are people who are just, they even ignore the warnings in history's past. You have Stalin's NKVD that persecuted and killed Ukrainians en masse and through starvation. You had Hitler's people, throw people in camps. And so, again, here history repeats itself. We have a group of people who want to enforce their will on others just because they choose civil liberties or have a choice that's contrary to their idealism and their idea of public health. So that was just 3 unconventional super weapons. The first 2 are, kind of like would be something out of a frickin' 007 movie or like super villain movie. And if anyone wants to borrow those for a book, they so can. And this is just the kind of weird shit my brain thinks of. I probably should see someone about some of this stuff. But yeah, that's 3 unconventional super weapons. that scare the shit out of me.